the previous lesson, we learned how to add report page tooltips to our visualizations. In this lesson, we'll learn how to visualize data over time using line charts and area charts. We'll start by looking at line charts. The line chart is another chart that's frequently used in reports and dashboards. These charts are most commonly used to analyze the trend in a variable over time. Let's say we want to analyze the number of customers by month. We want to get an idea of whether there are more or fewer transactions at certain times of the year. Before we bring our data onto the canvas, we'll select a line chart from the Visualizations pane, creating a blank line chart. We'll then drag the date field to the axis well, and the company name field to the values well. By default, the date field comes as a hierarchy of year, quarter, month, and day. We'll discuss this in greater detail in later lessons, but for now, we're only concerned with the number of companies by month. As such, we'll get rid of year, quarter, and day by selecting the X's next to them. We can see that the number of customers varies by month and seems to drop off considerably towards the end of the year. Let's modify this graph by adding the region field as a legend. We now have 4 different lines, one for each region. Let's move on and look at area charts. Area charts are similar to line charts, however the area underneath each line is shaded. We'll convert our line chart to an area chart by selecting the appropriate button in the Visualizations pane. In theory, this should make it easier to see the changes in magnitude of each line, but with 4 lines on our chart, it's a bit unclear. Let's take the legend out again and go back to a single line. The area chart now works quite well. The variations in data are much easier to see than with a simple line chart. Note that the bottom of the y-axis is not 0 on line and area charts. So while December is smaller than all other months, it's not as close to 0 as you might think. Line charts generally focus on trends over time, so the amount at any given point is less important. However, with an area chart, people may instinctively expect the y-axis to start from 0. If you think viewers may be confused by this, you can either modify the axis values in the Format section of the Visualizations pane, or use another visual like a bar chart. Let's add the region legend back to the chart. As we mentioned before, this is not the best visual. This is partly because it's difficult to separate the 4 areas, and partly because 2 of our lines, the Northeast and South regions, cross each other several times. To address these issues, let's switch to a stacked area chart. The areas are now stacked on top of each other, rather than overlapping as they did on the previous graph. The number of customers in each region is indicated by the size of the relevant area for any specific month. For example, while the West region is on top of the chart, it consistently has the smallest area, indicating the fewest customers. As we can see, when we have multiple lines or lines that cross over each other, the stacked area chart is much easier to read. Let's stop the lesson here. In the next lesson, we'll look at combining line and bar charts into a single, insightful graph.